On a cold Thursday night in downtown Chicago, the rain hit the windows of Jake Collins's cramped apartment with a steady, unforgiving rhythm. The city outside moved fast, but inside, the world stopped the moment he stared at his glowing phone screen. He had meant to text his best friend. Instead, the message sat delivered beneath a name that made his pulse crash in his ears. "My boss is so hot it should be illegal." Recipient: Sophia Reynolds, CEO. Jake's breath caught. "Oh God, no. No." His hands shook so hard he almost dropped the phone. From the kitchen doorway, Lily watched him, clutching her stuffed rabbit. "Daddy, did something bad happen?" He forced a swallow, but the panic was already tightening his chest. Losing his job wasn't just a fear. It was a threat to their entire life, the thin line he walked every day as a single father in a city that didn't give second chances. Then the screen buzzed. "Sophia. My office. 8 a.m. The room felt suddenly smaller, the air heavier. And Jake knew. Whatever waited for him tomorrow wasn't just a conversation. It was the moment everything could break. Or begin. If this opening pulled you in, like the video and subscribe to Real Life Stories New for the full story. The next morning arrived with a gray, heavy sky hanging over Chicago, the kind that made the whole city feel slower, colder, and less forgiving. Jake Collins stepped out of the elevator on the top floor of Reynolds Publishing with the same dread he carried through the night. His shoes felt too loud on the polished floor, and every breath felt thick, as if the air itself resisted letting him move forward. Sophia Reynolds had her office door slightly ajar, the morning light framing her silhouette. She didn't look up immediately, but when she did, there was nothing harsh in her expression, only a calm Jake couldn't understand. He stood in front of her desk like a man awaiting judgment. Before he could speak, she folded her hands, steady and controlled. "Jake, sit." He obeyed, though his heart thudded unevenly. Her eyes held his, unwavering but not unkind. "You sent me something last night," she said. "An unusual message." "I know," he replied, voice cracking. "It was never meant for you. I take full responsibility. I'll accept whatever decision you make." For a long moment, she simply studied him, as though measuring not the mistake, but the sincerity with which he owned it. "Your work speaks louder than one message," she finally said. "You're leading the Hartman campaign. Prove to me you deserve that trust." He blinked, unsure he'd heard correctly. "You're not firing me." "No," she said, leaning back in her chair. "But I do expect excellence moving forward. Can you give me that?" "Yes," he breathed, with a relief so sharp it almost hurt. "Absolutely." She gave a small nod. Permission to keep breathing. But outside her office, someone else had been listening. Richard Blackwood stood near the hallway, his lips curling into a thin, amused smile. He tapped his expensive pen against his palm, whispering just loud enough for Jake to hear as he passed. "Lucky day, Collins. Don't get used to it." Jake said nothing, but the words stuck to him like oil. He sensed danger, not immediate but growing. The next 2 weeks became a blur of deadlines, pitch rehearsals, and late nights fueled by too much coffee and not enough sleep. Jake poured everything he had into the Hartman project, not only to redeem himself but to protect the opportunity Sophia had given him. Each morning, he walked into the office feeling the weight of judgment from people who whispered about him and the CEO he accidentally confessed to. Home, Lily noticed. "Daddy," she said one night as he tucked her in, "you're tired in your eyes." He kissed her forehead gently. "I'm working hard for us, sweetheart. Just for a little while longer." She nodded sleepily. "I know. Mom would say you're doing your best." His chest tightened, but in that moment he felt the steady warmth of a child's faith. When the day of the presentation finally arrived, the conference room filled quickly. Hartman representatives on one side, the Reynolds Publishing executive team on the other. Among them sat Richard, arms folded, eyes sharp with something Jake recognized now. Resentment. Not toward the campaign, toward Sophia. And toward anyone she seemed to trust. Jake began the presentation with a steady tone. He walked the clients through the redesigned brand identity, the storytelling approach, and the projected results. But halfway through, Richard cut in with a theatrical sigh. This is reckless. Hartman has always valued stability. What Collins is proposing risks everything. Sophia didn't look at Richard. She looked at Jake. Continue. He did, unwilling to let the moment break him. When he finished, the CEO of Hartman leaned forward with a smile so wide it filled the room. We love it, the man announced. It's exactly what we were hoping for. Jake exhaled. Sophia allowed herself a rare smile. But Richard's jaw tightened, a shadow darkening his expression. After the meeting, Richard cornered Jake in the break room. You think you've earned her approval, he said, voice dripping with disdain. But let me be clear, your place here is temporary. And her leadership, hanging by a thread. Don't drag her down further. Jake stared at him, confused. I don't know what you're trying to imply. I'm implying, Richard whispered, stepping closer, that office relationships destroy careers. Hers first, then yours. Jake felt a slow burn rising. Not anger, but a quiet conviction that this man wasn't concerned about propriety. He was concerned about control. Later that week, when Lily injured her wrist at school, Jake had to take a day off. And unexpectedly, Sophia appeared at his door with a small gift bag and an uncertain smile. It was the first time she entered his world outside the office. Lily warmed to her quickly, and the three of them spent the afternoon together in a way that felt easy, dangerously easy. When Lily napped, Jake and Sophia shared a quiet moment in the kitchen. I shouldn't have asked if dinner was more than dinner, she said softly. Why? Jake asked. Because I'm your boss. 'Cause the board is watching. Because this is complicated. He hesitated, then replied honestly. It scares me too. But I'm done pretending I don't feel anything. Her breath caught, just for a second, and the space between them felt charged with possibilities neither dared speak aloud. Then reality intruded. Richard called an emergency board meeting. The next morning, the boardroom crackled with tension. Richard spoke as though he'd been rehearsing the moment. The CEO has demonstrated poor judgment, risking client relationships, mismanaging personnel, and engaging in inappropriate relationships with employees. Sophia's expression stayed calm, but the blow clearly landed. The room murmured. The trap was set. Jake watched, heart pounding. He couldn't stay silent. Not now. Not after everything she had risked for him. He stood. If by inappropriate relationship you mean dinner with me and my daughter, he said, voice steady, then let's be precise. She brought encouragement to a struggling parent and a gift to an injured child. If that's misconduct, then your standards say more about you than about her. Richard sneered. Sit down, Collins. You're out of line. No, Jake replied, pulling out a folder. What's out of line is what you've been doing behind the scenes. He distributed documents to each board member. Copies of emails revealing Richard's covert communication with Hartman's competitor, attempts to sabotage Sophia's decisions, and manipulation designed to undermine her leadership. The room fell silent. One board member turned to Richard. These emails are time-stamped from your company account. Care to explain? Richard's veneer cracked. Lies. All of it. Fabricated. They're verified by Hartman, Jake countered. They came to me concerned. Voices rose. Papers rustled. The board members exchanged looks that spelled doom for Richard. And for the first time, Sophia broke her composure. She looked at Jake, not in surprise, but with gratitude deep enough to silence everything around them. Richard was removed from the room within minutes and formally dismissed by the end of the day. His reputation, once untouchable, collapsed under the weight of his own schemes. His name, once spoken with deference, was now whispered with disgust. The power he guarded so viciously slipped from his grasp, and there was no recovering it. For Jake, the fallout brought something else entirely, a newfound clarity. In the weeks that followed, he and Sophia moved forward carefully but honestly. Their bond deepened, woven through moments of vulnerability, laughter, and shared faith in second chances. Lily embraced Sophia with innocence only a child could offer, and Sophia, in turn, showed a tenderness she rarely allowed anyone to see. Through board battles, late-night brainstorming sessions, and quiet evenings at home, they built something real, something worth fighting for. But the moment that sealed everything came 6 months later, when Jake watched Sophia kneel beside Lily at the dining table, helping her glue stars onto a science project. The scene glowed with a warmth he had once feared he would never feel again. That night, as the city lights flickered outside and the home settled into gentle quiet, Jake gathered the courage he had been building for months. He took Sophia's hand, his voice steady but full of meaning. "I don't want this to be temporary," he said. "Not for me. Not for Lily. Not for us." Her eyes softened. "It hasn't felt temporary for a long time. What happened next would change everything. And the person who once tried to destroy them was about to face a humiliation even he could never escape." Months later, the echoes of that boardroom showdown had faded, but its impact remained woven into every corner of Jake's life. He no longer walked through the office with the quiet uncertainty of a man waiting to be replaced. He moved with purpose, steady, grounded, aware of the strength he had discovered when he chose truth over fear. And beside him, Sophia carried her own transformation, not the poised CEO shielding herself from doubt, but a woman who had learned she could stand firm without standing alone. Lily felt the shift too. She laughed more easily, her world brighter with the presence of someone who listened to her stories and celebrated her small victories. Their home, once marked by the ache of loss, now held a warmth that belonged to all three of them. What surprised Jake most wasn't how everything changed, but how naturally it all settled into place. He hadn't chased redemption. He had simply refused to back down when it mattered, and life had met him halfway. The lesson was quiet but powerful. Courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's a single decision to act when silence would be easier. On a calm evening, as the sun dipped behind the city skyline, Jake watched Lily and Sophia frame her finished science project. The glow on their faces said everything, about healing, about possibility, about the way truth reshapes people. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and support the channel by subscribing to Canada's Heartfelt Tales. Your encouragement helps us bring more meaningful stories to life.